Welcome to Fast Effect Double Speed Magic the Gathering from ELD's Time Vault Games. Here we have Micah on Delver versus Rob on Death's Shadow. Thoughtseize leading out. Whole bunch of great options here. Look at that hand. A couple of threats. Force, blue card, Brainstorm for the fetch land. Wasteland. This is a really solid hand. Thoughtseize is going to do its best to poke a hole. Not going to lie, this seems about as resilient as you can hope for. Taking the Brainstorm. Couple of threats to potentially contend with. Early damage. Not much of a concern for Death Shadow. They actually want to get the game pretty low quickly. Make their Death Shadows a dangerous threat for only 1 mana. Dragon Rage Channeler. Probably more of a threat in the sense that it will generate some card selection. Yeah, we see here a Baleful Strix that really nullifies the attack half of the card. Wasteland takes out the Watery Grave, and Rob has actually put the brakes on a little bit, fetching up a Volcanic Island, trying to conserve some life. Neil Ponder, not difficult for Death Shadow to dip below. Wow, Pyroblasting the Ponder. So this Baleful Strix is still going to hold down the fort. May have had a missed Surveil trigger. Wasteland fires back. And Wasteland back. I mean, these guys are just destroying each other's mana bases. And now the board is clear. Absolutely brutal back and forth. One of my favorite playmats that I have ever made. It's Map of Ancient Greece by Henry Justice Ford. Champion gets that along with a big chunk of the, what did we have? Almost $1,400 in credit that we gave out. Got a small pin or magnet, about 2 inches. They were pretty good size. Actually pretty impressive to make out the detail of all of the text on there. Really fun process trying to take a kind of fuzzy image and play around with it in Photoshop and all where it needs to be. I'll probably revisit this image again in the future. We've got a Murktide. That draws a Force of Will. Murktide, both of these decks can employ this essentially 2 mana, often 8/8. Big reason for those main deck Pyroblasts. Really do want to be able to answer the Murktide after it's shown up. If you only have the option of countering it when it's on the stack, get absolutely blown out by days. You can untap and answer it on your turn. Much, much safer. And of course, you can just top deck a Pyroblast. Top decking a counterspell after they've already resolved their dangerous threat feels just awful. Thoughtseize taking the Expressive Iteration. Now another Murktide. Expressive Iteration. One of the... Oh, here we go. Unholy Heat is going to take out this Murktide. Expressive Iteration, one of the more fun cards that they've printed. I do love a 2-for-1. Gosh, favorite Magic card of all time. And Expressive Iteration, it's kind of like a Gush plus a Brainstorm. Like, it's got all of this card choice going along with it. A lot of fun. A Mishra's Bauble used now. It's a little surprising. Rob tempted into fetching. I Micah some information. Expressive Iteration. Your reason for Blue-Red Delver's popularity, but it's also in a lot of the control decks. got to be one of the better cards that have been printed, not banned in recent years. I don't think that's a controversial claim. We've had some that have been over the line, or at least deemed to be over the line with Oko and Brennan 6. Aggressive Iteration, just really powerful tools showing up in a lot of different decks. Days from Micah, stopping, I believe, a Brainstorm there. Bob leading out with a Ponder. This has been an absolute slugfest. At one point, both players, no permanence on the battlefield, just this war of attrition. And in those games, resolving cards like Expressive Iteration can be extremely important, going up on the number of cards, trading 1 for 1. Baleful Strix coming back down. Again, War of Attrition. Going to be a 2 for 1. Either trade with a creature or a removal spell. Ledger Shredder. Baleful Strix has got eyes for that Ledger Shredder. Hold it back, though. It will, again, create some value turn after turn if Micah can make that Connive pay off. Snuff out Hardcast. Hardcast Days. These alternate casting cost spells being played for full retail. Thoughtseize leaves Micah hellbent. Top decks a Brainstorm. That's very likely to be able to trigger Connive. Triple force for Rob. Look at that. 3 forces in hand. That clock is not what he wants, though. You want to be in that position with like a Death Shadow on board. Just hold down the fort for sure. Top deck a blue card. Be in excellent position instead. Diving. Wow, ditching Expressive Iteration. That is going to be scary for Rob. Like, what on earth are we looking at here? Actually, no, that's probably just not ideal. I mean, Connive getting rid of that. I mean, there was a Ponder beforehand. Maybe there was a shuffle that I missed. I feel like that Expressive Iteration is about the best thing you could hope for off the top. And that's a long way around. We've brought Mystic Sanctuary to get back that Expressive Iteration, which was ditched from the Ledger Shredder's Connive ability. All the way around the block there. And now another Ledger Shredder comes down. The answer to it already on board in this Expressive Iteration. Finds another bird. Chipping away. This Ledger Shredder not really representing lethal right now. Now it's just 1 power. Whoa, Death Shadow. That is a huge threat. 9 power. This is what the deck is all about. Here's Bobble takes a look. Card. Thinks for a second during the upkeep. Just lets Rob draw his card, and he's going to turn sideways. Death Shadow. He's got a fetch on board, so he could fetch down to lethal. He's got a block if he doesn't have the burn. Draws a card and scoops it up. Death Shadow Such a powerful, fun Magic card. One of my favorite decks that I've played in Legacy. Played a bunch of Blue-Black Shadow after the Deathrite version left. Seemed, I mean, it was actually a significant improvement. Now, Rob on Grixis, excuse me. One thing about playing Death Shadow is after every match, I was never certain that I had played it optimally. There were always these different forks in the road that were worth examining, trying to figure out if the choices were optimal, where those roads led, where they might have gone otherwise. And this is even when you're winning. I mean, I put up a great track record running it. But even in tournaments where I swept the whole tournament, it was still food for thought after of like, where could I have actually played better? Every single decision interconnected as your life total is just tied to Death Shadow's ability. I mean, it's just so important. Got some great matches on the channel. Me actually playing that. One of my favorite matches. Playing Blue-Red Delver. Way before it was the preferred Delver build. Had Monastery Swift Spears in it. Last game, both players temporarily without any lands here. I don't think that's going to be the case, as they've both built up a nice little mana base. And Ledger Shredder comes down along with Dragon Rage Channeler. It's a land, though. Connive. No plus. Keeping 4 business cards in hand. This is a kind of dominant board presence right now. Both of these could get out of hand very quickly. While tapped out, Micah not going to try to defend his creatures. Ledger Shredder goes to the bin. Wow. What a swing, right? I mean, that looked very solid. A Dragon Rage and a Ledger Shredder. A couple of beatdown creatures that can accumulate nice little card selection advantages over the next couple of turns, and instead, one of them already dead thanks to a free snuff out. A Baleful Strix neutralizing the attack potential of this Dragon Rage Channeler. A really fun build. You can see all of our lists from the Open Series events, all of the ELD Opens on MTG Top 8. I believe we have a link in the description by default. Search up the store name. Unholy Heat. No matter how you slice it, Baleful Strix ends up being a 2-for-1. This time it trades with the removal spell. Deathrite Shaman getting in there. I'm sorry, Deathrite Shaman. Dragon Rage Channeler getting in there. 3 cards left in hand. Kind of flooding out a little bit. Don't actually want 4 lands with Delver. There is an element of potentially holding on to some of those lands to brainstorm back. Ledger Shredder also can turn them into other cards. I mean, I suppose you're looking at like Murktide with backup and being able to play around days. 5 mana, your hard casting Force. Neither of those lines are particularly appealing. Death Shadow shows up and could unravel this situation very quickly. Right now, It's just a 4/4. Still a great value for 1 mana, but +3/+3 with that fetch land, fetching up a shock. One of the really interesting things about it. Oh, look at this Unholy Heat. Playing a game of chicken here with Rob. So Rob can fetch and it'll actually get this Death Shadow outside of Unholy Heat range. And Force of Wills instead. I don't know if I like that line. It's interesting. So he could have went down to... He ends up paying 1 life instead of 3. But he loses the Force. Let me know how you would play that there. Would be at 6. Presumably playing around Lightning Bolt. Another Unholy Heat. Wow. This play is available again. Rob can fetch and get out of range. The Mystic Sanctuary, bringing it back. Very strong printing for Legacy. Just letting it resolve. Letting it resolve rather than taking the damage. He's going to need to answer some creatures here. Oh, an Expressive Iteration. We may be going to the next game. Expressive puts a Murktide into the bin with the Surveil trigger from Dragon Rage Channeler, and then Rob Pyroblasts it. So he's at 4. He's got 2 turns before this Dragon Rage kills him. He needs to answer some threats here. What do we have? Brainstorm's a great way to start it. Fatal Push and a Death Shadow. Super efficient plays here. 1 mana answer, 1 mana threat. Oh, and Counterbalance feels so late here. Murktide. Counterbalance could have been potentially backbreaking on the previous turn, countering 1 mana spells potentially. Pyroblast. Sees a Wasteland on top. That Counterbalance really letting Micah down. Death Shadow swings, and we know it's going to be a Wasteland the next turn, thanks to the Counterbalance. So Micah scooping it up. That just all evaporated so quickly there for Micah, as Death Shadow shows why it is such a dangerous deck to play against here in Legacy.